Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome everyone to the Prabhupada Disciples Association weekly Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. Our association is based on the principles of hearing and chanting. And we have a variety of rules that we've published for our members to be aware of, with the purpose of giving them a detailed explanation on how to make the most advancement in spiritual life by practicing bhakti yoga. For example, and Vinkat Prabhu, are you there for me?
Yes, Prabhu.
You could show the rules. Could you please bring the rules up on the front of the screen? Along with these rules, which I'll have Vinkat read in a minute, we follow three principles that I'm going to reiterate again today. We only read from the authorized books given by Śrīla Prabhupāda, which are unedited by any other people outside of people he authorized to edit. That's one. Two, we do not associate with the members of the Gaudiya Math in the sense that we offer them respect, of course, and humble obeisances, but we do not follow the books or the programs that they do conduct based on Prabhupada's personal instructions to me and to many others. And the third thing is that we do not accept elected guru positions given by other organizations based on the principles of the disciplic succession given to us by Śrīla Prabhupada and how we understand the books and teachings to us. Here are the rules of conduct. And again, the purpose of these rules is to help people combine the principles of Krishna consciousness with the the weekly classes that we are providing. Could you read them out for us, please, Vinkat Prabhu?
Okay.
Please.
Number 1, chant 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra daily. 2, read Śrīla Prabhupāda's original books exclusively. Number 3, follow the 4 regulative principles, which are no meat eating, including fish and eggs, no intoxication, no gambling, including mental speculation, and no illicit sex life. Number 4, offer your food to Krishna and eat only prasadam, and when possible, share your prasadam with others. Then number 5, preach to everyone you meet to become a devotee of Krishna. Number 6, distribute original Prabhupada books to everyone that is eligible to receive them. Number 7, attend the weekly PDA classes. These are our 3 classes.
Yes.
And then number 8, follow in the footsteps of our esteemed godbrother Jayananda Prabhu and pledge to serve our mission in a humble state of mind as the servant of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda.
Okay, excellent. Now we're going to carry on with our reading of the original diary of His Divine Grace and the wonderful work that he did in his early years to spread Krishna consciousness despite very little support from others, and including his godbrothers in India. But yesterday we did read a letter from a particular industrialist in India, and he had a lot of suggestions. It was very revealing. Like a lot of people have different suggestions, different ideas. Today on my morning walk, I had a realization that there are a million different points of view in a million different groups trying to explain how to go back to Godhead, whether they're Christians or Muslims or Hindus, etc. There are millions and millions of people with different points of view. So I feel very privileged to be a part of this association and to be a part of Prabhupada's mission, which out of millions and millions of groups, this group is a jewel on the human, in the human society. It is truly a jewel. And we should all appreciate and humbly approach our opportunity to get this association and at the end of life go back home, back to Godhead. Maybe Jayamurti in Italy. You look so beautiful, so sincere. And here we are. We're at February 19th, 1966. Have you got that for us, Vincott? Mr.
Yeah.
Genius.
I think we have already
Electronic
read this.
genius.
Maybe.
No, we just read the letter yesterday.
Okay.
I do remember. We read the letter. That was as far as I went. It was a lot of information there. Very revealing, I found, actually, and I hope all of you appreciated it. Really getting an overview. I spoke to Joe, Bhakti Joe here in Hamilton. He said, I appreciate so much reading your readings of this diary, because otherwise I would have never had this opportunity in this life. So Saturday, February 19th, 1966. So Prabhupada here, he's moving forward. He keeps writing down his meetings. Mr. Banerjee invited to come here tomorrow evening. An expenditure butter 40 cents. In the evening, Mr. Paul and Mrs. LeBlanc came, attended meeting from 6 to 8:30 p.m. February 20th, Mr. Banerjee did not come and Koan and Salak came. Introduction to Gita Upanishad recorded, I think we did read this, 2 sides, 3 hours, no expenditure. Monday, 22nd of February. Monday, the 22nd of February, today's meetings were attended by greater number of members than other days. The linked the introduction record very much. They liked. Some of them brought fruits for me, and Mrs. LeBlanc paid $3. No letter received, no expenditure made. Oh, great inconvenience was caused today by oozing out of dirty water from the sink. It spoiled all the mattresses on the floor. The superintendent was informed, but he could not help. He said he would report the matter in the office. Tuesday, February 22nd, 1966. The report of the sink disturbance is informed in writing to the landlord's office. Today being a holiday, the office of the landlord was closed, letter not delivered. So Prabhupada's basically living in a slum. That's it. He comes from Vrindavan and he lands in New York. He's staying in a slum. But does it matter to him? No, he's just carrying on despite all the inconveniences. I went to see the house at Brooklyn with Babak Hananian. The house is not suitable for my purpose. In the evening, there was a meeting up to 9:30 p.m. And Wednesday, February 23rd, 1966, today the inspector of landlord came to see the sink and he will send the plumber tomorrow. Meeting was held, the collection $6. He's hardly getting any money in. I'm surprised. He's struggling to pay his rent. Remember, it's $75 a month. Meeting was held, the collection $6, expenditure bus fares to Times Square 30 cents. Mrs. LeBlanc took away the tape recorder for writing introduction to Gita Upanishad. International Institute for God Consciousness. Today signed by the floating members. Vegetables, 30 cents. Income, $6. Expenditures, 60 cents. So the net was $5.40. This is like a income and expense report, like an accounting income and expense report that any businessman has to do. Brilliant. Prabhupada is brilliant. For the proposed signatures of the members, see page 200 and 201. And we'll do that tomorrow, unfortunately, on Wednesday evening. We'll continue on with the reading of the diaries of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. We're going to ask our God brother Vinkat to please bring forward the video tape of Prabhupada singing Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, and please chant along and become fully absorbed in this pastime of the Prabhupada Disciples Association that we're recording for people now and in the future in the history of time. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Muspat Paramahansa Parivrajaga-Acārya Śrīla Prabhupāda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda Ki Jai. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तमंड की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण मोह गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवदीप धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। जमुना माई की जय। गुरु द्वारका धाम की जय। स्वामी तो भक्तबिंद की जय। ऑल ग्लोरी टू द असम्बली, ऑल ग्लोरी टू द असम्बली। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरयत्. Before reciting the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, one should utter the means of conquest, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, after offering respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayana, 2. To the Narayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3. To the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4. To Śrīla Vyasadeva, the author. Next, we will read from chapter 1, Canto 1, chapter 2, text number 17 and 18. Shrinvatam svakata Krishna punyashravana kirtanaha ridyantastoya bhadrani vidunoti suritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is also the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, does cleanse the desire for material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge for hearing his, Krishna's messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Text 18. Nashta prayeshu avabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in the Bhagavatam class or rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is inauspicious in the heart of a candidate becomes destroyed almost to nil, and thus loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental song, comes into being an irrevocable fact. Welcome everybody to this reading and discussion of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Just 1 minute here. That doesn't work. We'll be reading from the original 1962 version, from Canto 1, Chapter 2, text number 25 and 26. All synonyms, translations, and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Text 25. Bhijire munayo tagre bhagavantam madukshajam Sattvam Vishuddham Kshemaya Kalpanta Ye Anutaniha Bejire rendered service unto Munaya Ata Agri, thus before all the sages, Bhagavantam, unto the personality of Godhead, Adokshajam, the transcendence, Sattvam, existence, Vishuddham, above the three modes of nature, Kshemaya, for deriving the ultimate benefit, Kalpanti, deserve, ye, those, Anu, follow, Tan, those, Iha, in this material world. Translation by Śrīla Prabhupāda. All previous great sages rendered service unto the transcendental personality of Godhead on account of his transcendental existence above the three modes of material nature, for deriving ultimate benefit of being freed from the material conditions. Anyone who follows such great authorities is also eligible for such liberation from this material world. Purport. The purport of performing religiosity is neither to profit by material gain, nor to get the simple knowledge of discerning matter from spirit. The ultimate aim of religious performances is to get oneself released from the material bondage and regain the life of freedom in the transcendental world, where the personality of Godhead is the supreme person. Laws of religiosity are therefore directly enacted by the personality of Godhead, and except the Mahajans or the authorized agents of the Lord, nobody knows the purpose of religiosity. There are 12 particular agents of the Lord who know the purpose of religiosity, and all of them render transcendental service unto him. Persons who desire their own good may follow these Mahajan and thus attain the supreme benefit. Text number 26. Mumukshavo ghuram rupam hitva bhupati nata Narayana kala shanta bhajanti anasuyavaha. Mumukshavaha, persons desiring liberation. Ghoram, horrible, ghastly. Rupam, forms like that. Hitva, rejecting. Bhupatin, demigods. Atha, for this reason. Narayana, the personality of Godhead. Kalaha, plenary portions. Shanta, all blissful. Bhajanti, do worship. He, certainly. Anasuyavaha, non-envious. Translation. Persons who are serious about liberation, persons who are serious about liberation from the material conditions are certainly non-envious and respectful to all. And yet they reject the horrible and ghastly forms of demigods and do worship the all-blissful forms of Vishnu and his plenary portions. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is the original person of the Vishnu categories, expands himself in two different categories, namely integrated plenary portions and separated part and parcels. The separated part and parcels are the servitors and the integrated plenary portions of Vishnu Tattvas are the worshipful object of being served. All demigods who are empowered by the Supreme Lord are also separated part and parcels. They do not belong to the categories of Vishnu Tattva. The Vishnu Tattvas are equally powerful living beings, like the original form of the personality of Godhead, and they display only different categories of powers in consideration of different time and circumstances. These separated part and parcels are powerful by limitation. They have not got unlimited power like the Vishnu Tattvas. As such, the Vishnu Tattvas, or the plenary portions of Narayana, the personality of Godhead, are never to be classified in the same categories of the part and parcels. And if anyone does so, he becomes at once offender by the name Pashandi. In the age of Kali, many foolish persons commit such unlawful offenses and equalize the two categories as one and the same. These separated part and parcels have different positions in the estimation of material powers, and some of them are like Kala, Bhairava, Smashan, Bhairava, Shani, Mahakali, Chandika. These demigods are worshipped mostly by those who are in the lowest categories of the modes of darkness or ignorance, and there are others who are in the modes of passion to worship demigods like Brahma, Shiva, Surya, Ganesha, and many such deities urged by the desire of material enjoyment. But those who are actually situated in the mode of goodness, Sattva-gun, of the material nature, do worship only Vishnu Tattvas. Vishnu Tattvas are represented by various names and forms, such as Narayana, Damodara, Vamana, Govinda, Adokshaja, etc. The qualified Brahmins do worship the Vishnu Tattvas represented by the Shalagram Shila, and so also some of the higher castes like the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas also do worship the Vishnu Tattvas generally. Such highly qualified Brahmins situated in the mode of goodness have no grudge against the mode of worship of others. They have all respect for other demigods, even though they are ghastly looking like the Kalabhairava or Mahakali, etc. They know very well that these horrible features of the Supreme Lord are all different servitors of the Lord under different conditions, but yet they reject the worship of such horrible or good-looking features of the demigods, and they concentrate only on the forms of Vishnu because they are serious about liberations from the material conditions. The demigods, even to the sage of Brahma, the supreme of all the demigods, cannot offer liberation to anybody. Hiranyakashipu underwent of a severe type of penances for becoming eternal in life, but his worshipful deity Brahma could not satisfy him with such blessings. Therefore, Vishnu is called Mukti Pada, or the personality of Godhead, who can bestow upon us mukti, liberation, and none else. The demigods being as good as other living entities within the material world, they're all liquidated at the time of annihilation of the material structure. They are themselves unable to get liberation, and what to speak of giving liberation to their different devotees. The demigods can award upon the worshippers some temporary benefit only, and not the ultimate one. It is for this reason only the candidates for liberation do deliberately reject the worship of other demigods, although they have no disrespect for any one of them. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnanam Janashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namaum Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Forgive me this morning, I got a little bit of a sore throat. So here we have some very important points that are being raised by Śrīla Prabhupāda in these verses from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. It is well known from Śrīla Prabhupāda's teachings that he is always making the difference, always emphasizing the difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna and different demigods. We see that Prabhupada explains, Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudrati Devataihi Samatvena Viksheta Sapashanti Bhaved Dhruvam. What this means basically is, if one thinks that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu or Krishna is the same, on the same level as various demigods like Brahma and Shiva, he immediately becomes a Pashandi or offender. Now, this is quite significant because we see in Vedic culture that many people conflate or confuse the two different categories. But this is not to be done. Śrīla Prabhupada explains very nicely in the purport of text number 26 in the second paragraph, the Vishnu Tattvas are equally powerful living beings, like the original form of the personality of Godhead, and they display only different categories of powers in consideration of different time and circumstances. These separated part and parcels are powerful by limitation. They have not got unlimited power like the Vishnu Tattvas. As such, the Vishnu Tattvas, or the plenary portions of Narayana, the personality of Godhead, are never to be classified in the same categories of the part and parcels. If anyone does so, he becomes at once offender by the name Pashandi. In the age of Kali, many foolish persons commit such unlawful offenses and equalize the two categories as one and the same. So this is a very important point. Anybody who understands Prabhupada's teachings know that this is the essence of the Mayavadi philosophy, to confuse the position of Krishna, Vishnu, with the position of different demigods, and to claim that one will achieve the same result if one worships either one of them. But this is not what it says in the Bhagavad Gita. We've just been reading in Bhagavad Gita in chapter number 7, from text 21 to 24, where Lord Krishna is describing the position of the various demigods and what will be the result of that worship. In text number 21, Krishna says, Yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktaha shraddhayarchitumicchati tasya shalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. Translation: I am in everyone's heart as the super soul. As soon as one desires to worship the demigods, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to some particular deity. In the next verse, Krishna described Sataya Shraddhaya Yuktas Tasya Aradhanam Hiyate Labhate Chatata Kaman Mayeva Vihitan Hitan. Endowed with such a faith, he seeks favor of a particular demigod and obtains his desires, but in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Text number 23. Antavattu phalam tesham tadbhavati alpamedasam devan devayajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. And this is the very important point. Śrīla Prabhupāda, in explanations in the Sri Upanishad, give the example that if you buy a train ticket to go from Calcutta to Bombay,
Vishwakarma Prabhu, looks like we lost Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu's connection.
Okay. What we'll do, everyone, is we'll wait till he reappears, hopefully by his phone. It appears he's having some trouble with his internet connection there in the mountains in California. So I'll continue on briefly for us and refer to the purport as Prabhupada described, and you just showed on the screen. As such, the Vishnu Tattvas, or the plenary portions of Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are never to be classified in the same categories of the parts and parcels. So this is another demonstration of what's Bhaktisiddhanta referred to as atheism. If anyone does so, he becomes at once an offender by the name Pashandi. In the age of Kali, many foolish persons commit such unlawful offenses and equalize the two categories as one and the same. Now, I'm going to go to a section in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I'd like Vinkat to please bring it up. This particular section further illuminates of Shandi, those that have this defect. And it is explained by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Oh, here we have Yaśodā back. So, Prabhu, is your microphone working? Yaśodā, Prabhu.
I'm back.
Okay, go ahead then. Please.
So we were discussing how the benefits that are awarded by the demigods are in actuality bestowed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Krishna. Now, the Bhagavad Gita is very clear on this point, but the propaganda of the Mayavadis or the impersonalists is a different philosophy. They claim that worship of any god will give you the same result as worshiping Krishna or worshiping Vishnu. This is not the philosophy that is given in the Bhagavad Gita. Also in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Śrīla Prabhupāda explains that the International Society of Krishna Consciousness worships Lord Krishna to the exclusion of all other demigods. In other words, basically, we worship Krishna because that is the recommendation given by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. It is not that we have manufactured this worship. This is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. We also see in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that Śrīla Prabhupāda explains that worshiping of Lord Krishna includes all of the other demigods. Just like if you water the roots of a tree, then automatically you're worshiping or not worshiping, but you're nourishing the branches, the leaves, the twigs, the flowers, everything is being nourished. A person does not need to water every flower, every tree, every branch, every twig. That's not how it works. One has to go to the root. So one has to worship Krishna, and then automatically all these demigods are automatically worshipped. In other places, in the Vedic literatures, it is described that this worship of demigod is called Avidhi Purvakam. It is not done according to standard regulation. Now, this is an important point because we see that many of our friends from India, many Hindus, they're very fond of this demigod worship. Why? Why do they worship the demigod? Prabhupada explains in the purport, for material enjoyment. They're seeking some temporary benefits from this demigod worship. Anyone who has either been in India or come in contact with various Indian communities understands this. They're very fond and attached to the worship of demigods because we see in the Vedas, there are different recommendations for people who are seeking material benefit. Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavatam, in the second canto, various benefits which are achieved by the worship of different demigods. If one wants to be very powerful, he can worship Indra. If one wants a beautiful wife, he can worship Lord Shiva. If a woman wants a very nice husband, also worship Lord Shiva or Uma. If somebody wants to be very learned, they can worship Saraswati, the goddess of learning. There are so many recommendations for material benefits. If one wants to remove different obstacles for prosperity, one can worship Ganesh. If one wants wealth, one can worship Lakshmi. But one can attain all of this simply by worshiping Krishna. It is quite significant. In the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam itself, it is described, akama sarvakama moksha kama udharadi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. That whether one has all material desires or no material desires, or simply wants liberation, moksha kama, one should worship the Supreme Lord in all circumstances. In other words, all of these different categories of persons, are all satisfied by the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam again, Yata Taror Mula Vishatanena, that by worshiping Taror, the root of a tree, automatically everything flourishes. So this point is very important. What we will do for the next few minutes is read some of Śrīla Prabhupāda's comments to text number 25. This is from a lecture in Los Angeles, California, on August 28, 1972. August 28, 1972. Devotee, Bhejere Munayo Atagri, Bhagavantam Madokshajam, Sattvam Vishuddham Kshemaya, Kalpantaye Nutaniha. Prabhupada. Previously, all the great sages rendered service unto the transcendental personality of Godhead Bhagavan, due to his existence above the three modes of material nature. They worshiped them to become free from material conditions. Whoever follows such sages is also eligible for liberation from the material world. So in the beginning, there was no impersonalist or voidist. These are later additions. In the Vedas, it is stated, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Suraya. It is a Vedic mantra. Surayaha. Those who are great sages, they're always looking forward to see the lotus feet of Vishnu. Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. So in another Vedic mantra, there is Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stuvanti Divyestaver Vede Sangha Padakramopanishader Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyana Vastita Tadgatina Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaham Yashyantam Navidu Sura Suragana Devaya Tasme Namaha. Yam Brahma. Brahma is the original living creature within this universe. So he worshipped the Supreme Lord, personality of Godhead. He worshipped not only the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, he worshipped the person, Yam Brahma Varunendra. They were the first creation. And the sages, Marichi, Vasishta, Atreya, there are 7 great sages, firstborn. All of them worship the personality of Godhead. Bhejire Munayo Atagri. Agra means in the beginning of creation. Later on, they have deviated, or as the ages are going on, people are becoming degraded in their standard of spiritual understanding. In the Satya Yuga, 100% people were aware of their spiritual necessity of life. Next Yuga, 75%. Next Yuga, 50%. 50%. In this Yuga, Kali Yuga, 75% are rascals. And 25%, they're little wise. And out of that, 25%, mostly they're fruitive actors. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita says, Manushyanam Sahasrishu, Bhagavad Gita 7:3. So in this fallen age, they have manufactured so many things, but actually, in the beginning, Agare means in the beginning. All the sages, they worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhejire Munayo Atagre Bhagavantam. There are the absolute truth is manifested in 3 phases. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1-11. So Bhagavan is the last word in the absolute truth. So here it is said, they did not know Brahman or Paramatma. They worship directly Bhagavantam Adokshajam. Adokshajam. Another name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Adokshajam. Akshaja. Akshaja means direct perception. Direct means sense perception. Just like we see so many things directly with our eyes. We touch with our hands. We smell by our nose. These are different perceptions by our senses. But Bhagavantam, Bhagavan is Adokshajam. He is beyond direct perception. Adokshajam, Adaha. You cannot reach there by direct perception. Just like I do not see God. And what do you see? Your seeing power is very limited. Why don't you accept that? He's not appreciable by limited senses. Therefore, his name is Adokshaja. Adokshaja. Sattvam Vishuddham. Sattvam Vishuddham. Sattva, goodness. Sattva guna, Rajoguna. That Sattvam or existence. His existence is Adokshaja, beyond our sense perception. And Vishuddham, Apapaviddham, as it is stated in the Ishopanishad, Vishuddham, he's never touched by the material contamination. Vishuddham, Sattvam Vishuddham, Vasudeva Shabditam. Here, however, good we may be, there is some material touch. But so far, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of God, it is concerned, his existence is Vishuddham. Therefore, he's called Paraha, Narayana Paraha. Paraha means above this material world, transcendental. So material nature is created. Everything here created at a certain point. But because he's above, therefore he's not within this creation. We cannot take Krishna as one of the created beings like us. We're all created beings, but Krishna is not created. He is above creation. Before creation, he was existing. Therefore, his existence is not within this creation. That is Adokshaja. Within this creation, we can understand by experimental science. But which is beyond this creation, because we cannot reach there, Adokshaja. Because we take everything by direct perception. But that is beyond direct perception. Adokshaja. Shemaya kalpante yenutan iha. That is our real benefit, Adokshaja. In the beginning also of this chapter, it is said, Savayapum samparo dharmo yato bhaktir adokshaje. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1-6. The same word, adokshaje. Ahetuki apratiyata yayatma suprasidati. If you want real happiness, then you engage yourself in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shemaya, then you'll be happy. And if you take to other demigods, those who are material, that will not be your perfect happiness or permanent happiness. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita it is said, Yajante anyadevataha, kama, ka, what is that? Bhagavad Gita 7. We have read, we have discussed that if you want to fulfill this desire, then you worship this demigod. You want to be beautiful, then you worship Uma. If you want money, then you worship Prajapati. the treasurer of the demigods, Kuvera. And in this way, there are different recommendations. But the conclusion is that Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, Kameste sterita jnanaha, Bhagavad Gita 7:20. This material kama, lust, desire, for this purpose they worship different demigods. There is no necessity. Krishna stopped demigod worship to his father when his father was going to arrange a festival for worshiping Indra, and he stopped it. The father was so affectionate. Oh, Krishna doesn't want, all right, stop it. But Indra became very angry. Who's this boy stopping my worship? So he wanted to show his power. So for 7 days, torrents of rain, and Krishna showed his power. He lifted the Govardhan Hill, Giri-Varadhari, Govardhan Hill, to protect the Vrindavana Vasi. Then he came to his senses that he's not ordinary coward boy. He's my master. Then he. So in this way, Śrīla Prabhupada explains nicely the position of the different demigods and the position of the personality of Godhead. Again, as I've said before, this is a very important point that everybody should very clearly understand. Very clearly understand. Otherwise, one can become confused, as we see many times when we speak and meet with many of our friends of Indian community. They tend to be very confused about this point. This point is very important. Prabhupada, throughout all of his teachings, he's always emphasizing the exclusive worship of Krishna, the exclusive worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You study Bhagavad Gita, you study Chaitanya Charitamrita, you study Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, everywhere. The same emphasis is given again and again. And that is the same position, the exact same position that has been given by Śrīla Prabhupada in all of his teachings and all of his books. And he's just presenting what the great acharyas have been giving. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. Thank you very much for that clear explanation of these verses. And I want to mention that Prabhupada uses the example of purchasing a plane ticket in some of his lectures. He says if you buy a ticket to go to go somewhere, you're going to end up at that particular destination. If you buy a ticket to Calcutta, you'll end up in Calcutta, etc. So like this, if you have a focus on going back to Godhead, you have to have a proper understanding of who Krishna is, not who the demigods are or what the purpose of that worship will bring. If you have a worship of the demigods, you're not going to get the same result as you get when you worship Krishna. So Prabhupada is constantly directing us, and especially from the West here, we don't have a large comprehensive study of the Vedic teachings. So Prabhupada, he very nicely summarized for all of us and everyone throughout the world what the essence of our philosophy is. And it was also an important part of why he translated the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya is specifically giving us the path back to Godhead without the unnecessary study of the Vedas. It's sort of a summary study like the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam of the Vedic literature. And then like our god brother Vincott, I've been reading forward with the Chaitanya Charitamrita myself personally. and came upon these specific verses which do specifically direct us towards the worship of Sri Krishna as our only purpose in life. And this is in Madhya chapter 18, text 114. Madhya chapter 18, text 114. And we'll just read the verse in the English. If you could read it for me, please, Venkat.
Sure. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller, is always full of transcendental bliss and is accompanied by the potencies known as Hladini and Samvit. The conditioned soul, however, is always covered by ignorance and embarrassed by the threefold miseries of life. Thus, he is a treasure house of all kinds of tribulations.
So here we see that Prabhupada is differentiating between one class of men who understand that Krishna is the Supreme Person and the other class who are covered by the gunas, the threefold miseries of life. Moving forward, text 115. Now this is very important, this particular verse, because, and purport, because it further describes the details of what are a pashanti, as was mentioned in the purport. And Venkat, if you could please move forward and read the translation and the purport for us, I think it'll give us further insight into these matters.
Okay, translation. A foolish person who says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the same as the living entity is an atheist, and he becomes subject to punishment by the superintendent of death, Yamaraj. Purport. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that the word Pashandi refers to one who considers the living entity under the control of the illusory energy to be equal with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all material qualities. Another kind of Pashandi is one who does not believe in the spirit soul, the superior potency of the Lord, and therefore does not distinguish between spirit and matter. While describing one of the offenses against chanting the holy names, an offense called Shruti Shastra Nindana, blaspheming the Vedic literature, Jiva Goswami states in his Bhakti Sandarbha, Yatha Pashanda Magrena Dattatreya Rishabha Devopasakanam Pasandinam. Worshippers of impersonalists like Dattatreya are also Pashandis. Concerning the offense of Aham Mama Buddhi or Dehatma Buddhi, considering the body to be the self, Jiva Goswami states, Deva Dravinadi Nimittaka Pashanda Shabdhena Cha Dashaparadha Eva Lakshyante Pashandamayatvat Tesham. Those who are overly absorbed in the conception of the body and the bodily necessities are also called Pashandis. Elsewhere in Bhakti Sandarbha, it is stated, Uddishya Devata Eva Juhoti Cha Dadati Cha Sapashanditi Vigneyaha Swatantro Vapi Karmasu. A Pashandi is one who considers the demigods and the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be one. Therefore, a Pashandi worships any kind of demigod as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who disobeys the order of the spiritual master is also considered a Pashandi. The word Pashandi has been described in many places in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, including 4.2.28, 30, 32, 5.6.9, and 12.2.13 and 43. On the whole, a Pashandi is a non-devotee who does not accept the Vedic conclusions. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas 1.117, there is a verse quoted from Padma Purana describing the Pashandi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes this verse as the following text.
Yes, so very specific here in terms of how to become Krishna conscious. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. Through the process of chanting Hare Krishna, through the process of understanding who Krishna is from the lips of a pure devotee, And by following in the footsteps of the spiritual master, carefully, footstep. A footstep is a precise measurement within the sand. It's not any kind of footstep. It's an exact image. And we're expected to, this is the analogy that's given, we're expected, all of us as disciples of Śrīla Prabhupada, to follow exactly in his footsteps, to speak the philosophy of Krishna consciousness according to how he explained it, not through mental speculation, but through repetition. Heed it exactly as best as you can. We can also give explanation according to our realization, but the essence is to repeat what he has taught us. This is his example. He set this example, everyone, in terms of how he presents the philosophy, even in this purport that Vinkat so nicely read for us. And thank you very much, Vinkat Prabhu, for everything. He starts off by saying, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says that the word Pashandi refers to one who considers the living entity under the control of the illusory energy to be equal with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all material qualities. So here, Prabhupada is demonstrating practically to all of us the system of how to become a Krishna conscious person, how to become a pure devotee of Krishna. And Vijay Pandit, this is your goal. Your goal is to become a pure devotee of Śrīla Prabhupada by following carefully in his footsteps. And you're doing such a nice job. Don't stop. Keep going and make the whole country of Italy Krishna conscious. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, please, if you could further comment.
Now, this is a very important point about Pashandi, because as explained in that purport, it's not only with regards to various demigod worshippers who equate the worship of the personality of Godhead and the worship of the demigods as one and the same, but there are numerous categories of persons. Anybody who becomes familiar with Śrīla Prabhupada's books can understand that in so many places, he's described what is the proper process of devotional service, just like he gives in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna explains, Man mana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. It's a beautiful description by Lord Krishna, how to become Krishna conscious, how to practice Krishna consciousness. Very simple. Śrīla Prabhupada was in Vrindavan in 1972 in October during the Nectar of Devotion lectures. And what happened is Shyama-Sundar and Malati's daughter used to go in the courtyard, and she used to go to some of these very nice Bengali gentlemen that were dressed with these very nice dhotis and a lady with very beautiful saris. And she was very small. So she would tuck on their kurta, on their shirt, and she would ask, do you know who is Krishna? And she would say, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And everybody was fascinated with this little girl who was so nice, so sweet, and she was presenting Krishna. And Prabhupada, through the window of his room, could see, and Prabhupada says, just see, she's preaching so nicely about Krishna. She's presenting Krishna. Mm-hmm. So it's not like a very complicated thing, but the one thing, it's like every Vedic injunction. Vidhi Nisheda. Vidhi means what has to be done. Nisheda means what has to be avoided. What is to be done and what is not to be done. What things that are not to be done are explained in so many places in Śrīla Prabhupada's books. Mm-hmm. Now, this is extremely important because devotees sometimes think, well, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, and they develop a mindset that I can do whatever I want. This is a very dangerous mindset with many persons. When we were in Calcutta in 1971, devotees in India, Western devotees would go there, and many times they would get sick. They either would eat too much, or they would do things that would really interfere with proper digestion. So one devotee got very sick, and he went to Śrīla Prabhupāda, and he told Śrīla Prabhupāda that I heard that in the Shastras, that if you chant Hare Krishna, that it can cure any kind of disease. And Prabhupada said to him, yes, that is true, but in your case, you better take some medicine. So Śrīla Prabhupada was very practical. And there are so many instructions in his books of what not to do. And devotees have to become acquainted with that. Just like Prabhupada warned so many times, don't manufacture ideas. Don't concoct ideas. Don't make up your own ideas. Prabhupada has given all the instructions for the practice and the preaching of Krishna consciousness. Everything has been given there. It is just a matter of applying it and following nicely. And the minute people start concocting, there is all kinds of problems. All kinds of problems. It is not very complicated to understand. And we see this on so many issues. Devotees sometimes think they've become more intelligent than the guru. This is a very dangerous mindset. Very dangerous mindset. That is why Prabhupada recommended to the devotees that you have to read and study the books. You have to read these books. What to speak of nowadays, where we have a situation where some people say this is now the post-Prabhupada book era. There is no such thing as post-Prabhupada book era. It always will be Prabhupada's book era. Prabhupada's Vani incarnation, his instruction in his books, are the transcendental lifeline of this movement, of every devotee. This is the lifeline of a devotee. And when people change these books under the plea of grammatical correctness or grammatical embellishment, that is nonsense. That is very dangerous. And we saw this, we were discussing yesterday. Why have they changed Bhagavad Gita from he has seen the truth to they have seen the truth? Why have they changed in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Jagannath Das Babaji initiated Bhaktivedanta Thakur to some other interpretation? Prabhupada was very specific in the words that he used, the terminology, whether it was Sanskrit, Bengali, English, Latin, or anything. How many times have we heard from Śrīla Prabhupada the Latin words bona fide or bona fide? So many times Prabhupada is expressing this because he's trying to convey a point. But we're so dull in the age of Kali Yuga, we are so less intelligent that it doesn't register. Prabhupada is giving so many instructions, especially at the end. The last few months of his manifested presence, he gave so many clear instructions. Were these instructions followed? Were these guidelines given? Were these guidelines followed? Some of them were, many of them were not. So it's important to remember this, to take shelter of the Vani incarnation of Śrīla Prabhupada. Why do we read these verses before any discussion on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam svakata Krishna nashta prayusha babadeshu om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. This is not just some sing-song. There's a meaning to these verses. There's deep meaning to these verses. We should beg Krishna, beg Lord Chaitanya, beg Śrīla Prabhupada to reveal to us the real essential meaning of these verses. The other day, somebody sent me a video of a big preacher in India. He's not a Vaishnava. And he was criticizing the Hare Krishna movement and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for changing the order of the Maha Mantra, because in the Vedas, the Maha Mantra is given Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. That is the order that is given in the Kali Santarana Upanishad. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu changed the order and he chanted Hare Krishna, But it adds up to be the same. Just like the story of the Ramayana, when Valmiki, a professional robber, was told by Narada Muni, for you just chant Mara, 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 Mara. But when it comes as Rama. When you chant Mara, 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 it ends up to be Rama. So the same result, but this person was so less intelligent, he didn't seem to comprehend the transcendental, powerful preaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's why it has to be heard from authorized person in disciplined succession, not self-appointed, not pashandis, not nonsense people. Hare Krishna. Somebody has a question. Bala Ganesh Prabhu.
1 second.
I can't see here, but
that's okay. We'll bring it up, Yaśodā, in a minute.
okay.
I wanted to make a comment here for everyone's consideration. When I was in Toronto, Prabhupada came to celebrate the purchase of the Avenue Road Church with us. And I took the liberty of being the president at the time. I took the liberty of being the driver in his car that we had borrowed from one of our friends. And at the end of the visit, we had to drive Prabhupada in an emergency to Buffalo to take a plane to Africa. And so I was in the car driving, and there was Brahmananda was in the car, and Hari Sori and myself and Prabhupada. So it was really a grand blessing for me to be able to render this personal service to Śrīla Prabhupāda in his presence. And it took about 2 hours, Yaśodā Prabhu, to drive him to Buffalo, to the airport. So we had to go through customs. And throughout the whole drive, I had many questions in my mind, but everyone was silent. So I maintained silence because I wanted to make sure that I didn't disturb His Divine Grace because of my confusion, asked stupid questions. And I was also afraid to get chastised. I know when I was in Mayapur in 1976, after the, actually it would have been 1977 in March for the Gaur Purnima festival, was standing out front of the building. You'll remember, Yaśodā, that first building, we were staying on the wall. Only certain people were allowed to stay in the building. The presidents had to stay on the wall. But Prabhupada came up to me when he was walking back up the stairs to his room, and he asked me to come and see him that night in his quarters. And so I could explain. He wanted to know how we actually got the Toronto temple, because they had said they would, as some of you may know, when Prabhupada made the original offer to buy the temple, they sent a message back to us. They'd rather burn it down than sell it to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. And Prabhupada was disappointed, but at the same time, he still wanted the building. And by some, let me use the term, transcendental trickery, we got the building. So Prabhupada had sent me letters of congratulation and messages, etc., like that. But he was still fascinated to hear the pastime of how we got it. And at the time, his godbrother was there in the room when I went up, Krishna Das Babaji, who was a famous kirtan leader in the Gaudiya Math and was also a friend of mine, because previously we had attended and he had come to our room on the wall and did a famous kirtan with a group of us the year before. But the moral of the story was, whenever you went before Śrīla Prabhupāda, make sure you knew what you were going to say and make sure that you explained it properly according to the way he taught us. Not simply go there and make things up. So use your common sense, everyone. When you're doing things, imagine what you're doing. Would you go in front of Śrīla Prabhupāda and do it in front of him? Would you speak a certain way, the way you're conducting yourself in front of Śrīla Prabhupāda? Be mindful of the fact that many of us understood that simple principle, to be very careful in whatever you do, as if your guru is in front of you. And this is something that some people have never respected. Familiarity breeds contempt. And so they became contemptuous due to familiarity, and then they behaved in such a different manner, and it was, quite unfortunate for them. Venkat Prabhu, I see that we have quite a few questions and comments here from different people. Could you maybe go through some of them as Yaśodā Prabhu had requested, and we'll see if we can respond. Remember, we are finishing at 11:30. There will be a further discussion after 11:30 and the kirtan for those that wish to stay on. Go ahead, Venkat, please.
Yeah, I'm just going to put the questions on the screen, I think, so that...
Fair enough. And read them out.
So Balaganesh Prabhu asks, first question, who are the pure devotees among demigods, Prabhu? Whoever are mentioned in Brahma Samhita? That's the first question.
Okay, Yaśodā, please.
Agents. The demigods are agents who perform certain functions of management for Krishna in the material world, like Ganesh, Kali, Durga, Shiva, Brahma. But it's important not to confuse both. In other words, there is a specific function, a specific duty that they perform for Krishna, because Krishna, even in the form of Vishnu or Narayana, he's not directly involved in the management of the material world. He has agents, just like a king doesn't do everything personally himself. He has different ministers, he has agents, he has different people assisting him. So that is the position with the demigods, but they're very powerful. Just like it gives examples in the Bhagavatam, and Śrīla Prabhupada explains that these demigods, they can travel from one planet to another in the higher planetary system without, you don't need a BMW or a Volkswagen or a Ford. They can just go. They have all mystic powers. So it's just like right now, we have the Dhruva Loka, the pole star, and above that, there's the planet of the Saptarishis. Now, these Saptarishis have been living since the time of the creation. They were there during the time of Lord Rama. They were there during the time of Krishna. Many of these Saptarishis came when Shukadev Goswami was describing the Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parishad. So these different demigods have a different lifespan, a very high standard of material enjoyment. But we have to understand exactly what their function is, just like Indra. I keep joking sometimes how in California, there are sometimes very severe types of weather here and earthquakes. I keep joking that Indra and Vayu are upset with the sinful activities of the inhabitants of California. That's why they send the earthquakes and extreme heat, extreme cold, and so many things. And not just over here, it's there in many parts of the world. But this is controlled by Krishna's agents. I hope that helps.
Venkat, I
Yes,
see there's
Prabhu.
a question,
So-
Bhakti Hari Prasad, or did you see something else you wanted to highlight? for
Yeah,
question?
so the next question again by Bal Ganesh Prabhu, should we go
Okay.
with that?
Yes.
Since demigods are the representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and are present to manage the affairs of the universe or this world, so then almost all of them are Vaishnavis, or just elevated to that standard because of their pious credits, Prabhu. So that was the question.
Yes. Yaśodā, please.
He answered his own question. The last sentence, just elevated to that standard because of the pious credits. In order to become a demigod, one has to be highly elevated in pious activity. That's what Prabhupada described. Just like when Prabhupada was describing whether or not scientists went to the moon planet, his point repeatedly says in Bhagavad Gita, it says you can only go there by worship of the demigod. There's no description of achieving the higher planets by mechanical means. So by pious activities, but when their pious activities are finished, kshinya punye martyalokam vishanti. At the end of their duration, their scheduled duration of their pious activities, they come back. The difference is between the demigods and pure Vaishnavas is the demigod, they're devotees, but they're motivated devotees. They have a lot of highly material desires. And people who are infected with lusty material desires, they worship demigod for that. So, but that position is achieved because of pious credits.
Go ahead. Next question, please.
Yeah, two more questions also by Bal Ganesh Prabhu. So this Krishna conscious knowledge is very rare, and most Indians worship demigods without material motivations too, in a pure devotional way. What's the fate of them? After reaching the demigod planet after death, they will they fall to the material world, or if that demigod will teach them to elevate further up to Vaikuntha, since they're all Vaishnavas?
They're not worshiping the demigods in a pure devotional way. One has to be worshiping Krishna to worship in a pure devotional way. But Krishna explains in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, kamesteste ritagyanaha, that it is impelled by material lust. That's why they worship the demigods. Now, some people may argue, because I've heard that argument, well, it says in the Bhagavatam, in the Krishna book, that even Rukmini went and worshipped Goddess Durga before she was married to Krishna. Yes, there are different descriptions. It is part of Vedic culture to show respect to the demigods. But those people had a very highly elevated understanding about the clear position of the demigods and Vishnu or Narayana and Krishna. It is not the same. You know, in other words, it would be like confusing the Minister of Economic Development with the Prime Minister. It's not the same. Although the Minister of Economic Development probably has a lot of power, just like the king may have certain ministers who perform certain functions. They have a lot of power, but they're not the king. They don't have the same power as the king. So it is like that. Now, as far as the reaching the higher planets, the living entity always had is individual free will. Even if one reaches the higher planets, he can still perform devotional activities and go back to Godhead if he's pure enough. Just like there's a place in Prabhupada's book, it says that the inhabitants of Brahmaloka, at the end of the creation, they go with Brahma back to Vaikuntha. So there is different achieved. It depends on the level of consciousness. But usually people who are impelled by material desires, they worship the demigods, they attain that position. Hare Krishna.
And last question.
On clarification, if I may, Prabhu, in between, just extension to this question. We learned that sometimes if Jiva is not having sufficient credits to occupy the position of demigods, Supreme Lord himself will take up that position. For example, Surya Narayana, Prabhu. So if someone worships Surya Narayana, okay, since will it also be a demigod worship or a Narayana worship, Prabhu?
I would suggest that for these questions to be fielded by you, it would be better for you to type them out like we are, and then Yaśodā could respond accordingly. Go ahead with the last question of Vinkat from Bala Ganesh.
Okay. Oh, well, the last question is about Dattatreya, because in the purport, it was mentioned that he's an impersonalist. So,
Yeah.
so Balganesh Prabhu is asking, but Dattatreya is Vishnu Tattva. If we worship Dattatreya, also they will become Pashandis? So that's the question.
Why would you want to worship Dattatreya?
No, Prabhu, actually here we have a wherever I'm staying, right? So there's a temple of Dattatreya. So generally Vishnu temple is not accessible to me. So I thought if I go there and worship, am I Pasandi? Also, that's a doubt which came up to me. So thought of asking.
Well, it depends on your consciousness. Just like we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited some Shiva temples. Do we consider Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a demigod worshipper? No.
No, Prabhu.
There's different level of consciousness. Even Madhvacharya visited various temples of demigods, but these acharyas, they show by example, even if they worship a demigod, they worship to preach to them, to educate them, to instruct them about the superior position of Krishna. As a matter of fact, there is a letter in the Prabhupada letter book where in the beginning, devotees would go to places like Malaysia and Indonesia, where they have some Hindu temples, and they were invited to do kirtan and read Bhagavad Gita. And then they were invited to take demigod prasadam. And Prabhupada told them, don't take the demigod prasadam. You can accept it and take it with you, but don't eat this. As far as we are concerned, the only prasadam we can take is that which is offered to Vishnu or incarnations of Vishnu or Krishna. So as far as Dattatreya worship, you can offer your respects. There's nothing wrong with offering your respect, but we don't generally worship Dattatreya. Well, you can look in Prabhupada books, do a little research and see what Prabhupada says about Dattatreya, but we all know what Śrīla Prabhupada says about Krishna worship, about Lord Rama worship, about Vishnu worship, about worship of the different avatars. So one thing you can do just for yourself, recite the Brahma Samhita every day or listen to the Brahma Samhita. Just a little while ago, I sent a beautiful rendering of the Brahma Samhita. Of course, we can always listen to Prabhupada singing Brahma Samhita, but there are other people who have sung this Brahma Samhita in a very melodious, very sweet, very enlivening voice. Listen to that every day. You'll get very sweet transcendental. I mean, one of my experience with Prabhupada in 1976, I was chanting Brahma Samhita in the deity room, and somebody came to me and said, Prabhupada wants to see you. And I thought, oh my God. And I thought I was going to get severely chastised because he didn't say what Prabhupada wanted to see me about. So I was a little terrified, maybe that I did something wrong, or I didn't sing the proper way, or that I made some kind of offense. So when I came in Prabhupada's room, I paid my obeisances. And I realized that some of you may not ever been with Prabhupada, but Prabhupada sometime would exhibit different moods. And this is something that Vishwakarma Prabhu knows. And sometime he would be very serious and very stoic. He would look at you and his eyes would be very piercing. So he looked at me and he says, was that you that was singing the Brahma Samhita? I said, yes, Prabhupada, did I do something wrong? He says, oh, no. That was very nice. So you stay here and teach the children in the Gurukul like that. But I was afraid that I had done something wrong some way or other. So I was getting ready to be severely chastised. But Śrīla Prabhupada, also in 1974, we were taking a walk in the Vrindavan Parikram path with Karandar. Karandar was the leader in Los Angeles, and Prabhupada was very fond of Karandar. He had done tremendous service to set up the Sankirtan. Him and his brother Keshava were some devotees joke they were Maharathis. They were like great general in Prabhupada's army, like Brahmananda and others. They did tremendous service, selfless service to establish the mission. So Kuranda was there on a walk, and Prabhupada was near the Madan Mohan temple on the Parikram path. And anybody who's been in Vrindavan knows that this temple is very majestic. It's on top of a hill. It's beautiful. And even though the Muslims invaded Vrindavan and, so many deities were taken, that temple is still standing, and it's quite impressive. And Prabhupada pointed out to the temple and point out to Kuranda, this temple was built just when your country was being founded in America. It is a very special temple. Sanatana Goswami was here. And then Prabhupada said, do you hear that? Because in Vrindavan every morning, there is a Ramanuja Sampradaya temple, a Sri Rangam temple in Vrindavan, and they play this melodious chanting of the Suprabhatam, or they worship Lord Vishnu with this very nice Sanskrit chanting. So Prabhupada looked at every one of us and says, some of you should learn to sing Brahma Samhita like that. So when I went back to South India, I met our friend Sampat Kumar Bhattacharya with Guru Kripa. And I said, can you teach me to chant the Brahma Samhita? He says, well, it's a different Sanskrit meter. It's not easy. It's different. So, but he taught me certain things. And when I chanted in 76, that's why I was worried. I didn't know if Prabhupada was going to be upset, if he was going to be happy. I was lucky. I was very fortunate that His Divine Grace was happy. But my point is, with regards to Dattatreya and all these demigods, hey, if you want to worship any demigod, chant the Brahma Samhita. You'd worship Ganesh, Surya, Durga, Shiva. All the mantras are there. Just use that. Sing it. It's very nice, very sweet.
Excellent.
I hope it helps.
Sure.
It did. Thank you very much, Yaśodā, for that beautiful pastimes on your association with Śrīla Prabhupāda, our spiritual master. We've reached the end of our regulation time. We're actually a bit over, but nonetheless, I didn't want to take us away from the flow of nectar of spiritual knowledge that has been coming through the class today in the reading and discussion of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. We're going to play the kirtan from the 60s of Prabhupada chanting with his new disciples back then, who could barely play the cartels, as you can hear, but it has no distraction from the purity and the force of the chanting of Hare Krishna that you experience when you hear it. So after the kirtan, there are a few more questions and other devotees here on the call who, if you wish to stay on, will carry on and answer questions for a short period of time to finish our Sunday program of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam at the Prabhupada Disciples Association.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivāsadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivāsadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivāsadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda. All glories to the Sankirtan mission of Lord Chaitanya. And we're using this vehicle of the internet as a method to reach people globally. And on my morning japa walk today, I saw a fellow walking down the street. He was a bit disheveled, let's put it that way. And there was one thing I noticed. And most people that you see these days on the street or wherever you go, what are they doing? They've got their phone open. So they're walking down the street. A lot of people don't even pay attention to the traffic. They walk across the corner walkways where there's danger, but they think there's no danger because they're busy reading messages on their phone. This is a global phenomena. Everybody has a cell phone that enables them to be reached. And so this is a very dynamic tool for us to transmit truth to others. Like I was saying at the beginning of the talk today, not only within the Vaishnava circles, but globally, there are millions of different opinions in all the different groups that exist, whether they're Muslims or Hindus or Buddhists or Christians. There are millions of different churches and temples and leaders that are propagating a philosophy. This is how you get to God. And they're convinced. Here in America, there have been lots of people that have been famous, like Jim Baker and Jimmy Swaggart and all these different Christian preachers that come and go, that they have the way, the truth, and the light. Well, everyone's entitled to an opinion. Everyone's entitled to choose what they think is right for them. But we're hoping that through this vehicle of the internet and our classes, our Prabhupada Disciples Association Facebook page and other medias that we're developing. Right now, we've reached 9,500 members on the Prabhupada Disciples Association group page. When I started it about 14 months ago, we had 20 people. I think I might have invited a few just so we had some image that there was a group. We never thought that 9,500 people would join this group. And recently, one of our devotees here in Hamilton, Bhakta Joe Felice, he was mentioning to me that on the Prabhupada Disciples WhatsApp chat that we've started with some of our members, within one day he had 250 messages. 250. And even on the posts that we put up online, I do a lot of, I don't spend all my time, but I do put posts up from the God brothers and God sisters that are with us. I review some and I post them. We get 40,000 impressions a month of from the internet posts. So we're reaching out using the internet technology that we have. We have a media team as well. We have many, many projects on a huge agenda that we're trying to fulfill. And if you feel so inclined, you can get in touch with myself or Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu or Vinkad or any of our members here to discuss how you can participate, how you can help us present the Krishna conscious philosophy in the footsteps of our Guru, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. Vinkad Prabhu, I see we have some more questions, or if anyone else has points, please, you can push the button on your screen and put your hand up and we'll acknowledge you. But we'll move forward with some more questions. This Bala Ganesh Prabhu he just can't stop it. How old are you, Bala Ganesh? I think I've asked you before.
Yes, Prabhu, you asked me.
How old are you?
Prabhu, I'm 32, Prabhu, now.
32, okay. So you're moving into middle age. Some more questions from Vinkad or Hari.
Yeah, there's a question by Hari Prasad Prabhu.
Please.
How and when did this notion that every god is the same come into being? It is widespread across all of India. Was it propagated by the followers of Sri Adi Shankaracharya?
Yaśodā, please.
Yes, that is a fact. That was propagated by the impersonalist followers of Shankaracharya. That is one of the pillars of their philosophy. But this is not the philosophy that has been presented by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita and by the great acharyas like Ramanuja, Madhvacharya, Vyasatirtha, Jayatirtha, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and all the great Vaishnavacharyas. There's a clear difference between the position of Krishna, Vishnu, Narayana, and the demigods. And to confuse both, that's why Prabhupada calls them Pashandis or deviants. Now, people may say, well, in India, it's part of the tradition, it's Hindu culture. Well, there's a lot of different things in Indian culture. Prabhupada says in that one purport, we don't have any hatred against the demigods. It is not a point of discrimination or hatred against the demigod. It is just a point of explaining Krishna's position and the position of demigod. We were just speaking on the Brahma Samhita. If you look in the Brahma Samhita, there's that verse, Ramadi Murtishu Kalaniyamena Tishtan Nana Avataram Akarat Bhuvanishu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramah Pumanyo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. What this basically explains that all of these different forms, but this speaks of the different incarnation from Lord Rama, Narasimha, Vamana, all these incarnations of Lord Vishnu, that they all come from Krishna, and Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. So this is a very important point to understand, because a lot of people are so conditioned with this Mayavadi philosophy that it's very difficult for them to accept this point. Even though some of them may put tilak, dhotis, have the look of devotees, they have to, in their head, in their heart, in their minds, they have to understand this point to realize what they're saying. Very important point. I think that Nityananda Prabhu also has his hand up there.
Yeah, please, Nityananda in Vrindavan. Good to see you again.
Hare Krishna, dear
Hare
devotees, please
Bo.
accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda.
Hare Krishna.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. Very wonderful pastime, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu. I really appreciate that, listening to the pastime of Śrīla Prabhupada. So thank you for sharing. My question is regarding, you were mentioning regarding the manufacturing of ideas that's happening today.
Yes.
Between amongst devotees. So I've seen that within Śrīla Prabhupada's ISKCON, there is devotees that are practicing Krishna Lila, Radha and Krishna Lila festivals that's been created, which I haven't seen around in Prabhupada's time, around Śrīla Prabhupada's time, like the boat festivals, the swing festival, breaking of the butter pot. That's what's happening now, holy festivals. So I'm not sure if that was around when, if Prabhupada used to do that, or Prabhupada used to allow that, or is that something that's been manufactured now by ISKCON that devotees have created?
I can say that back, and I'd like Bhakta Ron Singh after to comment as well, but Nityananda Prabhu, I can say that back in the early 70s, we only celebrated Gaur Purnima and Janmashtami, basically a few other festivals, key festivals, the disappearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, like that. And we had a calendar which was very concise in terms of the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition that Bhaktisiddhanta gave to Prabhupada. There were no worship. There wasn't even a Diwali festival. Nowadays, it becomes a big thing. You have Diwali. That didn't exist back then.
Yes.
In fact, when we used to go to Mayapur, you know, they would throw the colors. You know, we're from the West here, so we weren't. You show up in India in your early 20s and you're walking around these streets and these people are throwing colors on us. We're wondering, what the heck is this? So, you know, we always used to hide out in Mayapur in our rooms when that festival came on. So the answer from my experience, or from our experience, was there were none of these events that they're concocting these days. There's a lot of mental speculation. There's a lot of concoction, unfortunately, in that group. But what can you do? This is what goes on.
I was thinking,
Dr. Ron, just let Ron answer if he could to you, and then we'll get your next question. Go ahead, Dr. Ron, please. About mental concoction.
Yeah, I mean, Śrīla Prabhupada had a very specific system of how he presented Krishna consciousness, and many of the things that the so-called Hindus are doing, Prabhupada never approved of. So Prabhupada set up a unique movement, and a very simple yet sublime movement. So once these things get introduced, it's very difficult, because now ISKCON is basically more or less run by the so-called Hindus, and they have a hodgepodge philosophy. So Śrīla Prabhupada's presentation of Krishna consciousness is very simple, very easy to practice. So wherever there's different festivals being introduced, we see different types of dancing, all kinds of weird kirtans. So yeah, it's become a totally contradictory movement than Śrīla Prabhupada has set up.
Well spoken. Yes, Nityanand, go ahead, please.
So I was thinking that that's basically what they're doing. Like the Romans used to do that to keep the public distracted. I'm asking questions. They should have the circus, or do they have games, Olympic games or whatever. So basically, maybe that's what they're doing, to keep them distracted with many festivals of different things, that they don't ask questions of what's happening within the management and leadership, because they're always looking forward for the next festival that's been created.
Yes.
Okay. So my next question is regarding Śrīla Prabhupada's books. Regarding the 11th and 12th canto. When Śrīla Prabhupada physically left, how did the devotees, Śrīla Prabhupada's disciples, get the understanding of the 11th and 12th canto, the devotees just use the translation from the Shri Kriva Prabhu, or did you translate the Sanskrit and just use the translation just to understand the 11th and 12th canto? Because obviously we can't take their purports into consideration, seeing that it's not Śrīla Prabhupada.
You know, personally, I don't go past the 10th canto where Prabhupada finished his work, because he was giving purports right up to the end, basically.
Yes.
So I still enjoy that, and that's quite sufficient. But at the same time, the administration then carried on with a plan based on the people that were taking roles as translators or preachers of the philosophy, who thought that they were capable or qualified or authorized to do such. And as we've seen by the way things have gone or went on after Prabhupada's demise, it was chaotic. And so we're recommending that people just stick to the original books and purports. As far as extending into that, Prabhupada did deliver a lot of information for us in the books and teachings that he gave us. Yaśodā-nandana, please.
I just want to, that's a good point that he's raised there. I just want to put things a little bit in the historical context of how these books were translated.
Yes.
In 1977, now this is not, there's no documentation of this, but Śrīla Prabhupada raised the issue in a conversation with the GBC on May 27th, 1977, that his translations were, because he was a realized soul, they were being appreciated by everybody. And he was saying that anybody who was going to translate the book should be highly realized. So in other words, the question is, how did he want the Bhagavatam, specifically the 11th and 12th canto? Because the 10th canto has been translated into English with the Krishna book, so that's taken care of. When we were in Vrindavan there, it was the understanding of all the GBCs and devotees there that Prabhupada had delegated Pradyumna Prabhu, also affectionately referred by Śrīla Prabhupada as Panditji, to translate the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Prabhupada told him to translate, this was related to me directly by Pradyumna Prabhu, that Prabhupada told him only to translate the direct commentaries of the Acharyas, like Jiva Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Baladev Vidyabhushana, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, and also other Acharyas, other Vaishnava Acharyas. There's a big book that Prabhupada used to translate from. It's a Sanskrit book. It's about like 12, 14, 16 inches thick. That's got all the Sanskrit commentaries of all the great Acharyas. That's what Prabhupada translated from at night. He had this big book. It was published by some people from the Vallabha Sampradaya, maybe 50, 60, 80 years ago. And it's got all the commentaries of Ranga Ramanuja, the Madhvas, the Nimbarkas, Jiva Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Baladev Vidyabhushana. It's got something like 16 or 18 commentaries. The commentary of Sridhar Swami, the original commentator on the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada used to translate his purports from that book and also from the commentaries of his Guru Maharaj and Bhaktivedanta Thakur. Prabhupada told Pradyumna that he should translate directly from the writings of the Acharyas and not to give his own personal opinion or his own rendering. That was the instruction he got. Now, some people claim that he asked Śrīla Prabhupada if he had any technical questions, whether or not he could ask Sridhar Maharaj from the Gaudiya Math about clarification. Now, I've not seen this documented anywhere, and Prabhupada allegedly or supposedly said yes with regards to that specific question. Well, I know that this is amplified, that they went there and asked him about everything else. But the point is, because Pradyumna myself and others in Vrindavan in 1978, were basically raising a lot of questions about the new developing guru system that was being introduced. All the things they were doing, the Vyasasanas, the new pranam mantras, the new procedures, the new guru puja, everything was being turned upside down. All the standards of worship and practice which Prabhupada had brought to his society were all being changed, all on the plea of this living guru appointment, this alleged appointment. When Pradyumna wrote that to Sasvarup, he became persona non grata. He became enemy number one, I became enemy number two. Because they took it that we're envious, we're rascals, we're fools, we're demons, we're in Maya, we're going to drive them away from ISKCON. It got to the point where these people threatened to have some of us assassinated. That's how crazy it became. Okay, and if people don't believe me, I say go ask Sulochan. Find out from Sulochan what happened. Now, the point I'm trying to say here is Prabhupada delegated Pradyumna Panditji to translate the Bhagavatam. When the GBC saw that Pradyumna did not go along with their interpretation of Śrīla Prabhupada's instructions, they were planning to take the service away. As a matter of fact, one GBC in the Western zone made a statement, there is no place in our movement for smarta Brahmins like Pradyumna and Yasodanandan, and you're going to see what we're going to do to them when we go to Vrindavan in February of 79. And it was a climate of political nonsense, basically, unfortunately. So they took the service away from Pradyumna and gave it to one of their alleged appointed acharyas, Hridayananda Swami, and another devotee named Gopi Paranadhana Das, who was supposedly a Sanskrit scholar. What Gopi Paranadhana did is he translated from Sanskrit to English the purport of the acharyas, and Hridayananda put it together, put his comments together. As for many devotees, like for example in Los Angeles, when they finished the reading of the 10th canto, 13th chapter, which Prabhupada translated, they went back to the first canto. They didn't go to all the translations that had been done by Hridayananda. And I know that this is very controversial because some people feel, well, the GBC authorized this. Well, the GBC has authorized a lot of things which have proven to be incorrect. That whole translation of the Bhagavatam was done on an insult and offense against Pradyumna Panditji. Personally, I deserve everything that's happened. But Pradyumna didn't do anything to these people. He rendered faithful, selfless service to this movement. Prabhupada mentions his name in some of his books. Prabhupada gave him that title, Panditji. So this is all I will say. Now, some devotees try to defend this. A lot of devotees don't accept these translations. A lot of devotees will just read the verse. They will not accept the purports. So whatever, I'm not going to say anything else besides that.
Thank you very
I'm not
much.
going to get into the character of some of these individuals. People
Thank
can
you.
do their own research on the internet.
Yes.
I hope
Dr.
it
Ron,
helps.
Dr. Ron, I want you to do this for us because I think this last question from Nityananda Prabhu and the detailed answer that Yasoda-nandana did give us is very valuable for other people to hear, because this is how many people, Nityananda, know the facts as Yasoda just explained them to you. Who else can tell you other than someone that was right there personally in that situation and went through these situations? This is a very valuable bit of information that's accurate. It's truthful. It's not adulterated. We're not here for personal aggrandizement. We're here simply to enjoy each other's association, just like we appreciate you coming. I'm so happy you're here with us as a participant. You know, sometimes we have more people, sometimes less people. We're interested more in the quality of our group, not the quantity. Quality, the people that really are looking to understand What was Prabhupada's real desire? Like you asked about the festivals. He wanted to know. So we told you from our practical experience, these are things that have been concocted by other people for whatever reasons, to make money, to become popular, to expand their corporation. Remember, Krishna consciousness is not a corporation, it's a mission, the mission of Lord Chaitanya. We have somebody here. Janas Priya in Hawaii. Prabhu, please, if you could share your comments or questions with us. Janas Priya, are you there? Maybe his mic, your mic's not on. Janas Priya?
I can turn it on. Let me see. Maybe
Please.
he's having trouble.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you
Hare
now.
Krishna.
Good to hear from you. Go ahead,
Hare-
please. Please.
Okay,
Please.
Hare Bol, please accept my humble obeisances. Yeah, that last question about Nityananda and the way Yasoda-nandana Prabhu described it, it's, I mean, he had front row seat to that whole thing, you know? So it doesn't get any better than that. And my question is for Yasoda-nandana. And
Yes.
this question is, I heard the story many times. Maybe he was there and he could tell us if he was there. After they became fake gurus, and Tamal Krishna announced that he was arriving in Vrindavan and he wanted a Prabhupada-like reception when he got there. So he got, this is the story I heard, so I want Yasoda-nanda to confirm or narrate it the proper way. He got there and there was no arrangement and they threw him a pillow, like a regular pillow, or what he said. And he was furious and he was cursing and whatever. And he got up and said, tomorrow I will come back and I want the proper reception. And then the same thing happened. So after that day, he changed the whole management of Vrindavan. So
I think
that's what
you may
I
be
meant.
referring to Janmashtami of 1978 in Vrindavan in late August, when Tamal Krishna Swami and Bhagavan Das came there to take sannyas, and Bhavananda came there, and because Guru Kripa at the time was the GBC of Vrindavan. And what happened is Guru Kripa passed an internal policy that there will be no Vyasasanas in Vrindavan as long as he was there, no pictures on the altar, no Guru Pujas in front of Prabhupada for anybody else, basically a fully Śrīla Prabhupada in the center temple. That's the policy he established. And what happened is one devotee from the French zone came to Vrindavan a month before they were supposed to come there in late July. And basically he came with a fistful of $100 bills, says, this is to build 11 Vyasasanas for the new gurus. So what happened is I told him, I says, well, Guru Kripa has a policy here that he doesn't want anybody else to accept worship in front of Śrīla Prabhupada. And Guru Kripa had told devotees, Prabhupada had not given any such instructions to set up Vyasasanas in his temple for anybody to take worship in front of them. So when they came there at the Krishna Balaram temple, we received them at the gate. We gave them flower garlands. We offered obeisances, gave them sandalwood, very respectful. But later on, they complained that we disrespected them because we did not give them Guru Puja. We did not allow them to have a special morning worship and all of that. So basically at that time, their Pradyumna, who had written a letter to Satsvarup, was there in Vrindavan, and we met with Tamal Krishna Swami and Bhagavan and some others. And Pradyumna explained his position, which was basically reflecting the position of most of the devotees in the temple. There was Akshayananda Swami, Jagat Guru Swami, and numerous Gurukul teachers, various other devotees who had been discussing these issues. And what happened before that meeting is when one Gurukul teacher had met with Bhavananda and raised the issue, it seems that there is considerable concern on the part of many devotees the way that this new guru system, for the lack of a better term, has been introduced in Prabhupada's society. And Bhavananda basically laughed and says, there is nothing to discuss. We have already discussed everything. We have already decided everything. There is nothing to discuss. They should just accept. And if they're not happy, let them all leave. We've got our own disciples now. And he laughed, ha, ha, ha. So I'm not saying that this was the attitude of every GBC at the time, but it was surely the attitude of some of them or many of them. So what happened at the Janmashtami when Prajimna confronted some of these individuals and told them that Prabhupada, in the last few months of his manifested presence, did not give any such instruction to set up Vyasasanas, claiming that somebody is the guru of such and such zone, to put up pranam mantras, to put up pictures on the altar and all of that. None of this was discussed by Śrīla Prabhupada. This should not be done. And some of them became angry, and their basic reply was, well, we're in charge. Prabhupada put us in charge of managing this movement, and you people should just cooperate with us. As a matter of fact, one of them gave the example that you people should just be like the Pandavas who coronated Maharaj Yudhishthira as the king. You should not be envious. And we told him it is not a matter of being envious of anybody. It's a matter of what Prabhupada said in 1977, in the last few months of his manifested presence. Prabhupada did not discuss any of this. He did not introduce any of this. So after that, Bhagavan says, well, we got these ideas from Sridhar Swami of Navadvip. We should go consult him again. So that was the end of the discussion. Later on that afternoon, Guru Kripa went and spoke with Bhagavan and Tamal. I was on the third floor. I went to the third floor, and you could actually hear the discussion. And they told Guru Kripa that Yasoda and Panditji, Prajimna, are making waves. They're causing a lot of disturbances. You should stop them. You should stop their nonsense, and then we'll make you a guru at Mayapur the next year. So there was a lot of political nonsense, political shenanigans, trying to introduce their ideas, but they could not defeat Prajimna's argument. Whether somebody believes or not that they were appointed or not appointed, Prabhupada never started this guru worship in his temple. As a matter of fact, in February of 1979, when the entire GBC came to Vrindavan to incidentally remove us from there, when we had those discussions, Prajimna presented to the GBC a statement from Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatan Goswami in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. Guroragri Pritak Pujam. It is an offense and a blasphemy to the spiritual master to take separate worship in front of him. And he told them no pictures on the altar. Nobody should put their pictures or their Vyasasanas in Prabhupada's temples. Now they may say, well, we've removed those. Well, not enough. You still have your pictures on the altar. And Prabhupada never appointed any of you as Diksha gurus or initiating gurus, any such thing. So basically, that's a brief summary. There's a lot more details along with numerous other statements that these people have made.
Excellent. Yes. I wanted to refer here to Venkat. Could you read out the comment from Chaitanya Gadji that just appeared on the chat? I wanted to respond to it, if you could read it out.
Okay. He says, there are some people who say that we just criticize ISKCON. Why not focus on positive stuff? Why negative?
I wanted to respond to the Prabhu. Thank you very much for that question. We're not focusing on the negative parts of ISKCON. We're focusing sometimes, like today's class, the entire class was focused on hearing and discussing the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Our group, after the class, is collected here online to discuss and give answers to questions that they have. Like Nityananda Prabhu had asked a question so he could get information, some facts about the reality of what went on. Now, someone would say that's negative. It's not negative, it's a fact. These facts are important to know so that you can understand what you want to do with your life. If it's a cover-up, if it's a lie, if it's a misconception, if it's a mental speculation, it not only harms you to hear it, but it harms everybody else that hears it. I'm going to give you another example, Nityananda. In Vrindavan, there was a devotee that came from Toronto, and Yaśodā knows him, Drupada Prabhu. Now, Drupada was a very good, he still is a very good devotee, but he was a very good devotee in the Toronto temple. And what happened was, when we used to go to India, there would be people in India that would be trying to recruit Western devotees to come and help support the temple development there. And they asked us to donate somebody from our temple, so we sacrificed him. As it turned out, it was a sacrifice. He was sacrificed to them. So he was kicked out of Vrindavan eventually. He was the one that started the first Goshala there. He ran the Goshala for a couple of years. He even had the people that murdered Sulochan came to the Goshala when they were hiding out. I'm not sure if Radhanath was there, but he gave the money for them to fly there and hide out. It was the person that actually committed the crime. So he was also this is after he got demoted from being head pujari. He was the head pujari of the Krishna Balaram deities when Prabhupada was alive. Okay, from Toronto. And I was blessed to be able to give him his first Gita in 1972. So do I know him? Yes. He told me what happened. Bhavananda, this was before Kudichak showed up in Vrindavan with a wallet full of money to build his Vyasasans for these 11 so-called new acharyas or gurus. They didn't have the money to do it. So what they did was Bhavananda came to Drupada, who was the head pujari, and he said, take the money out of the pujari fund and use it to build the Vyasasans. Now, is that fault finding? That's not fault finding. These are facts. Now, in any kind of court of law, or any kind of discussion or debate, they don't deal with rumors. They deal with facts. They deal with witnesses.
Okay.
They deal with explanations that are true to the people that were there, that were experiencing it. And as far as we're concerned, these things that come out, like recently with Bhaktivedanta Purna. Now, someone could say to us, why are you dealing with that issue when it comes out? Well, we're not dealing with it. We're not discussing it in our classes, in our situation here, and we're having this discussion because these are facts. These are things that people are doing that are atrocities, and it should be exposed for the sake of protecting sincere people who want to go back to Godhead by avoiding the association of these deviants. There's no joke here. This is $1 billion movement that Prabhupada created, and there have been hundreds of millions of dollars wasted by these people. These are not small issues. For small minds, they are.
Yes.
But for the persons that really understand our philosophy, these are real issues. Nityananda, please.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I just want to add on that to this Prabhu that's speaking, that's asking these questions. So I want to
Yes.
add on to what you were saying. So
Yes.
if the Prabhu can understand, like I understand what you're saying, that everybody says that this is what ISKCON says, why don't we focus on, but this is the truth. We are focused on speaking the truth. Like the questions that I'm asking, I'm not asking for myself. I'm
Yeah.
asking the questions so that everybody can benefit from it. The Prabhupada's disciples are saying it so that the whole world can see. This is what Prabhupada wanted directly from the mouth of Śrīla Prabhupada's direct disciples. Some of us, the devotees here, understand already what Śrīla Prabhupada's
Yes.
directions were, right? But the devotees are out there, they don't know, and that's why this is public. So when we asking certain questions, it's not for our benefit, so we have to continuously go over this. The questions that we ask is for the benefit for everybody else, so they can understand what has happened to ISKCON, to Śrīla Prabhupada's ISKCON. We're not criticizing Śrīla Prabhupada's, we're not criticizing them. We are speaking the truth. This is what Śrīla Prabhupada wanted. Śrīla Prabhupada's orders are A, they are doing B, so therefore they're not following Śrīla Prabhupada's orders. They changed Śrīla Prabhupada's books. That is not right. They're not chanting, firstly, they're not even chanting Hare Krishna properly. They're causing offense against the holy name. The third offense against the holy name is to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. They disobey the order of the spiritual master by becoming gurus and taking on disciples. So how can they chant purely? They will never be able to chant purely. So therefore, they will always cause offense against the holy name, and they will never attain they will never attain to Shuddhanam Bhakti, to Shuddhanam chanting, to the pure name of the Holy, and they will never be able to take their disciples back to Godhead. That is a fact.
Yes.
So all of these questions that we ask is all for the benefit for everybody to understand this is what is happening within the movement. This is what's happening between Śrīla Prabhupada. This is the difference between what Śrīla Prabhupada is teaching and what they are teaching, which is completely opposite.
Yes, exactly.
If I may say something, here, why did Prabhupada discuss in the Chaitanya Charitamrita the history of the breakdown of the God Yamat? Why? What was he trying to do? He was trying to warn devotees. He was trying to warn devotees to avoid that mistake, not to repeat the same mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's nice to discuss that we should chant and just read the Bhagavatam, but the reality we're facing, that there has been banning, beating, suing, some assassinations, kicking devotees out of temple, financial mismanagement, embezzlement. There's a whole long list of things that have happened. We don't take pleasure, but the truth must be told to warn people, to instruct devotees and people who are trying to become devotees to understand the history of what has happened, to make sure that this doesn't reoccur again and again. That's the point. Whether or not we have a big organization or not, that is not the issue. Prabhupada did not have a big organization in India. When he was in New York in 65, 66, 67, there was no big organization. It has become big in due course of time, but there's plenty of warnings by Śrīla Prabhupada in his letters, in his books, in his lectures, in his conversations about what to avoid individually and collectively for the growth of the Krishna consciousness movement. This is a very important point. We cannot avoid these discussions. It's going on all over the world on the internet right now as we speak. There's people that are discussing these things every day. You cannot avoid it. It has to be understood in the proper context, in the proper way, according to Prabhupada's instruction.
Actually,
and
they're
also,
exposing
there's
themselves.
a big difference between ISKCON and FishCon. False ISKCON and real ISKCON is two different things.
Actually, they are exposing themselves. They are exposing
Yes.
themselves by them doing what they are doing. They're exposing themselves, and we are just showing how is this related. We are asking the questions to all of you. All of you are in ISKCON. We're asking the question: how is this related to what Prabhupada wanted?
Exactly.
Gurus are doing the wrong things. We are just saying, why are they doing this? And then you can't answer. Then you'll say it's criticizing. They'll sing the number one song in ISKCON. There is a Vaishnava Aparad song. Whenever you ask questions, then they start singing Vaishnava Aparad. They don't even know what the qualities of a Vaishnava is. Firstly, There's 26 qualities of a devotee that the one needs to have. Become a Vaishnava. You have to attain those qualities first. So we don't criticize anyone. We don't criticize. All we do is we are fact finders. We're not fault finders. We are fact finders. According to Guru Parampara, to Śrīla Prabhupāda's authority, we compare everything to Śrīla Prabhupāda's authority, and we judge from there. We have imperfect senses. Śrīla Prabhupada is perfect. We confirm everything to Śrīla Prabhupāda's authority.
This is the same argument that was given to us in 1978 by many devotees. You should not be criticized. You shouldn't be envious. You should just accept. Don't discuss these things. Just leave it to the senior devotees. Or you should just cooperate. Well, that's all nice and good, but that does not answer the questions. There was secret discussions going on that were kept away from the devotees. This issue was never fully discussed in front of all the devotees in Mayapur in March of 1978. They had their secret discussions. They didn't bring out this so-called appointment date in front of everybody. They didn't discuss the issue in front of everybody at Mayapur. They didn't discuss the issue in front of all the temple presidents. I was living with these people. I know. And when we tried to bring it up, then there was all this character assassination, threats, nonsense, kicking people out, foul language, threats of beating. But where is the discussion? They had no answer. When we asked them, where and when did Śrīla Prabhupada give instruction for everything you're doing? They could not answer. They still can't answer 46 years later. They'll have some interpretation, some speculation, some secret committee, but where is the evidence? There is none.
Exactly.
That's why devotees are discussing it, although they don't want to discuss. I call it parampara problem. Just accept, don't discuss, don't make waves, and if you make waves, we'll take care of you. That's why I say, go ask Sulochan what happened.
I wanted to ask Vinkat to read this next comment from Chaitanya Gadji. He's asking the question. I do have an answer. Go ahead, please.
Okay.
They say what?
Why discuss this history and focus on chanting? They say you don't have big temples, organizations, kirtans, etc.
Well, a couple of answers here. We do. And if you were at the beginning of the class today, we stressed different rules and regulations that we promote amongst our membership. And one of them is to chant your rounds carefully every day and follow all of the different principles that Prabhupada taught us on how to be devotees. So we do that. Number two, in my particular case, Prabhupada sent me a letter personally, and he said, it is a topmost triumph that you've got this temple in Toronto for Krishna, up from the Parliament buildings. It is one of the most, I'm explaining now, one of the most prestigious buildings in North America. And then through the politics and the negativity of Kirtananda and Gopal Krishna and everyone else, it's in other people's hands now with their big bank accounts. Number two, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu was also instrumental in the building of the Krishna Balaram temple and Mayapur projects in the early years with his Sankirtan efforts, with his party, with Guru Kripa. So we're not people that don't have big temples or haven't produced results. We established the traveling Festival of India program. It was a Rath Yatra festival across North America, out of Toronto, which has affected tens of millions of people. So we're not speaking from the point of view of fault finding. We're explaining things based on our experiences being in the ISKCON movement for in and out of it for the last 53 years or 55 years. Lastly, these so-called temples. I just had a discussion with a godbrother a few days ago. And in North America, there are no people left in the temples. They're advertising. This one devotee from the Silicon Valley requested that they get some full-time membership from his congregation to come and help them run the temple. And the response was zero. We saw a picture of the temple in Mississippi that was purchased by another Nityananda from somewhere in Fiji, I believe he is now. He was a very expert devotee back in the days when he was a president in the movement. He bought 1,000-acre farm called New Talavan in Mississippi. Nityananda from Vrindavan. So I'm watching the video. Bashu Ghosh, who's in India, he has this frequent flyer ticket to go everywhere and anywhere he wants, from India to England to Dubai to America. He must have a good travel expense account because, you know, it costs a lot of money to travel, as you know, we all know. So he puts a post up on Facebook of them giving a class at New Talavan. And I'm looking and I'm seeing him there. I forget who was the speaker, some devotee who's there. He could have been the president. Now, they have a fairly large marble temple room. There were no devotees at the class. The picture was there. I'm looking at the picture. I'm going, like, where's the congregation? Most of these places, Jayapataka showed up in Texas recently on a donation, a fundraising tour. He's going around in his wheelchair with all his servants. He was in Los Angeles. You go there, you see them preaching to the sentimental devotees, a lot of very neophyte people, a lot of, not to criticize them, but a lot of people from the East Indian community there. They're playing off their sympathies because they're naturally devotees, and they're collecting money to support their programs because they have no membership. So whatever this Chaitanya was asking is a good question, but the reality is much different than that. And these are facts, they're not criticisms. And this is the state of the affairs of the society in 2023 because of a misdirected elected guru system that they concocted based on their own desires for profit, adoration, and distinction. Nityananda, I know you're in it.
Yes, I can also add on that, Prabhu. I can share that as well, that sentiment, that understanding, because when I was in South Africa, what they do is the temples are empty, right? So they pay devotees to actually do seva, which is, I mean, you know, they pay the pujaris, they pay devotees. They have an old business system, management system that's happening. From the temple president that gets paid, everybody gets paid. I understand that people need to make a living, but they're working outside, they're living outside of the temple. And they have this organization. The temple is empty for most of the times. The temples only get full is when one of these so-called gurus come to the temple. Then they advertise and everybody comes, and it's basically a collection scheme because those gurus come and it's like a mafia. They come and collect their funds and they move on to the next temple. That's how it is. They go from temple to temple, collecting their funds, getting the dakshina from all of their disciples, and they move on. And then they take that money and they buy luxury apartments and they fly around the world and whatever they actually do. Where have you seen these majority of these so-called gurus? They don't stay at the temples.
Right.
They don't stay at the temples. They live at the disciples' houses, and not just any house. It has to be a mansion or something like that. That's where they stay. These so-called gurus, they are actually, how can I say? They are actually controlled by their disciples. They do not get to tell their disciples what they want to speak on. Their disciples say, you're going to come at this time, you're going to give a class at this time, you're going to sing a kirtan, they're going to feed you at this time. everything's going to happen according to what we tell you to do. That's how it's actually operating from my experience of what I've been.
That's true.
From what I've seen. So that's how it is. Yeah. So,
That's
I mean,
true.
the temples
You're
and
not
all of these
making it up.
kirtans. Yeah. And let's talk about the kirtan. There is different types of kirtan. There's different types of kirtan. The Shuranam kirtan should be heard. Kirtan should be heard, right? Kirtan is very important. But it says there in Hari Bhakti Vilas as well, most of these kirtans, they charge in money for these kirtans. Hari Bhakti Vilas says that one who pays for the kirtan, one who hears for the kirtan that's been paid for, one who sings who leads the kirtan, they all get contaminated with material desires because it's not pure. You cannot pay for kirtan. So what type of kirtan are we talking about? That's another thing. There's many facets to all of this. It's easy to say, yes, what about the temples? What about the kirtan? What about all of this? What are we? But look at the quality of what they're doing. The devotees don't understand the quality because they don't study Śrīla Prabhupāda's original books. That's why they do not have the understanding to understand what's the difference between what's a real kirtan, what's a temple meant for. Temple is meant for congregation. Śrīla Prabhupada says that within, I don't know what's the mile radius, 10-mile radius or whatever, devotees should congregate and meet the temple for Mangala Aartis, do the whole program. But nowadays, everybody has their own little altar at home and they worship in, which is fine. But the whole point of the temple is for congregation and for devotion and for Sangha, devotee association. That's the most important thing. And the type of association is also important because it also says in active devotion that one should seek out advanced devotee association. So if none of them are advanced, then who are you going to associate with them? Because all of you are talking the same things. They all talking the same things. This is the guru, or which guru should I take today? That guru, everybody's canvassing for their gurus. What is the difference? I asked one devotee, what is the difference between that guru and this guru? Because they wanted to take initiation. They can't even say the difference. Or I like his class, or I like his kirtan, or whatever it is. That's not the essence. Divya Gyan. Guru means one who has opened your darkened eyes with the transcendental knowledge, with the torchlight of knowledge. That's what it means to have a guru. One who imparts Divya Gyan. Now these gurus, they haven't imparted anything. What they're doing is, you're reading Śrīla Prabhupāda's books, you listen to Śrīla Prabhupāda's lectures, you're getting your transcendental knowledge is coming upon you. And then all of a sudden they tell you, okay, now that you got the transcendental knowledge, how beautiful it is, now choose a guru. So why would you choose somebody when you already got the knowledge from Śrīla Prabhupada? Now they're asking you to pick one of their gurus. And then some devotees say that they can only understand it through their guru. Then my question to them is, why do you need a purport for Śrīla Prabhupada's purport? Are you that cannot understand? So simple. Śrīla Prabhupada has put everything for us. So there's a lot to question as well. I mean, it's easy for the devotees to question, what about our temples? What about the kirtans? What about the books? What about everything else? We can also question. Yeah,
perfect. Very profound. Thank you. Very, very profound. Haribol, it's a very important message that we're delivering to people, like you said, for their understanding. It's not for confusion. There's enough confusion in the world. I see Bhakti Joe Felice made a statement. Temple is like a spiritual education center. Maybe Vinkat, you could comment on your chat message there.
Yeah, this was just related to, I heard I saw an extract of Śrīla Prabhupada saying that in fact, that's very relevant to what we're discussing here. Maybe I'll open it, but there in that he says, Śrīla Prabhupada says that temple is supposed to be a spiritual education shelter, and not just opening a temple for earning money. So yeah, I'll open that. Meanwhile, you can continue the discussion.
Fortunate thing is we have set up a virtual temple and the congregation is happening in real time. We are promoters of Krishna consciousness. The idea is that you're supposed to take the talents, like Nityananda's got talents. I see that in you, Prabhu. Very good talents. You're very determined, and you're dovetailing them in Krishna's service. And, you know, for all of us, whatever ability that you have, you should use that ability in serving your guru and serving Krishna. Myself, I've been a promoter all my life, whether it was in the movement or outside of the movement. When I finally decided that promoting material events and business ventures and that was a futile effort on my part, it was only doomed for failure, I decided about 8 or 9 years ago that I would just become a promoter for Krishna. This was a personal decision I had made. And today in 2023, we're all working together as a team. Team building is the key here, not narcissistic, individualistic, egotistical motivations to become someone great or recognized. This is not our goal here. Our goal is team building. And through the cultivation of a team of like-minded devotees, like yourself, Nityananda, like Vijaya Pandit Prabhu, like Janas Priya Prabhu, like Venkat Prabhu, like all of the devotees on these calls that are working to spread Krishna consciousness in your personal area, this is the way we'll continue to influence people globally to take up the process of Krishna consciousness with a proper understanding. We're not in a competition with other people. We are simply serving. And the other point, Nityananda Prabhu, I wanted to mention that Prabhupada was speaking to me in a lecture the other day, was he saying that it wasn't Arjuna's responsibility to fight the war. It wasn't his responsibility. It was his responsibility to carry out the instruction of Krishna.
Right. Yes.
Not the fighting. He wasn't entitled even to the result. All he was entitled to was to simply accept the responsibility of carrying out the order of Krishna. And in this way, he went back to Godhead.
Yes.
So that's our business here. It's not quantity, it's quality. We're interested in quality people working together with a common purpose to preach the truth of Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya to the world. Yes, Venkat Prabhu, please. You've got a beautiful section here. Thank you, Prabhu, by the way, for your brilliance and using it in Krishna's service. Go ahead, read off.
This is a Bhagavad Gita lecture from 8th March 1972. So Śrīla Prabhupada says, my Guru Maharaj used to say that if one is inclined to collect money by showing deity, it is better to become a sweeper in the street. It is better to become a sweeper in the street because he's earning his livelihood honestly. And this man who is keeping a temple and doing all nonsense simply by showing deity, collecting some money, this class of men, they're most sinful. You cannot do so, sir. You cannot take others' money. You'll be debtor. Therefore, gradually, because this class of men are developed at the present moment, they have become, in Vrindavan, there are so many temples, they have become made a business by showing temple, collecting money. This is not good. There must be, temple means people should come, people should learn the science of God. That is temple, not that to make a business of temple. Therefore, everything is, not only in India, all over the world, the churches also, they have dwindled. Now in Europe and America, so many churches are for sale. We have purchased so many churches because people have no more even interest in. There is no education. Temple means spiritual educational shelter. People should come, they should learn what is spiritual life, what is God, what is my relationship with, that is temple. Otherwise, if you simply came, so yeah.
Beautiful. Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you.
Yes.
Just glorious, glorious. Prabhus, we're moving on to 1:45 here in Canada. We started the class at 10 o'clock. So it's been a very enlivening conversation and association with all of you. Is there any last comments that we want to field?
I
Vijaya,
think Vijay Pandit Prabhu.
yes, please, Vijay Pandit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to waste your time. Prabhu is very late. Yes, right. But I have one just something to say to Chaitanya Gadgil. And of course, we don't have temples because they steal us everything, and they kick us out. This is the reason. But we don't give up, because every house of this devotee participating here in the Sangha and somewhere else, in his own house, everybody have his temple.
Right.
And worshiping Lord Krishna through the bona fide spiritual master Śrīla Prabhupāda. But this I want to say, why we don't have temples? Because they steal us everything. And they move away all these sincere devotees who saw the fraud. That's it. I just
Dr. Ron, Dr. Ron, if you could make a comment, please, to wind up the class. Dr. Ron in Sacramento. Are you there, Ron?
Yeah, I'm here. Just listening to the conversation here. The history is very important because whenever we're in the material world, there's a past, present, and future. So whenever we want to make an example, Śrīla Prabhupada was giving proper direction from 1965 all the way till 1977. So we're as followers of Śrīla Prabhupada. We must know what Prabhupada exactly wanted and how he wanted the movement to progress from into the future, meaning 2023. So if you read the original instructions and how they've changed, how is that criticizing? We're actually trying to help people who have went on the wrong path, and blind leading the blind. So Prabhupada was never into this blind following. So we're also on these programs, we also don't want people to follow blindly. They should come here, ask questions, get their doubts resolved, and implement this at their local congregational level. So thank you very much, Prabhu.
Well, thank you, everyone. It was a tremendous reading and discussion today, very extensive and personally very enlivening for me to hear that, all your comments and your enthusiasm to be devotees, good devotees of Prabhupada, to spread the mission of Lord Chaitanya according to Prabhupada's teachings. And we'll carry on. Next Wednesday, there'll be a wonderful reading of Chaitanya Charitamrita and discussion. We're reading through the various verses, and we're very fortunate to have Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, who is truly a Sanskrit scholar for us, and a wonderful practicing devotee of Śrīla Prabhupada, to help us all have a deeper understanding of why we are the followers of Śrīla Prabhupada, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda Ki Jai. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. We'll see you Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Canada. Haribol.
All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada.
Thank you. Let me see if I can.